we can assess the structure of the ownership of media industries or any economic sector in general in terms of looking at how many companies dominate or control that particular market or media sector. And there are three common structures for ownership of media sectors, or again, any economic sector in general. The most concentrated form of ownership structure is a monopoly. That's when one company controls most of the market for a particular media sector, and that one company really dominates both production and distribution in a particular media sector or industry. Just a couple of examples of a monopoly in media. Historically, we can look back to the 1960s and 70s when the company AT&T had a monopoly over the telephone business. That AT&T at that time controlled most of the business for people's local and long-distance telephone service. That monopolistic structure was broken up in the 1980s when AT&T was forced to divest itself of its local phone companies. Another example of a monopoly would be Microsoft and its dominance of the market for operating systems for computers. That the U.S. Justice Department in the past has taken action against Microsoft because of its dominance of the market for operating systems with Windows. Another common structure for ownership in media sectors is an oligopoly. That's when you have a small number of companies dominate the market for a particular media sector. And an oligopoly is the most common ownership structure for media sectors. And I think we see this in our survey in this course of various media that time and again with newspapers, television, film, magazine publishing. In most of these industries, we see the dominance of maybe 5 or 6 companies. So we have oligopolies in for instance, the film business, where you've got 5 or 6 large film studios that maintain control over the production and distribution of films. And then the last model that we see in media is what's called limited competition. That's where you have many different producers, but only a limited number of products within this particular category. And the classic example here is the market for radio, right? We have many different radio stations in operation today across the country. However, there is a limited number of products available in radio. There's a limited number of formats, right, like talk radio, news, country, contemporary hits, so that we have many different radio stations, but they all more or less conform to this limited number of formats that, again, limits the choices for consumers or people that are making choices about what radio station they're going to listen to. So again, 3 common structures for the ownership of media today: monopoly, oligopoly, or limited competition. And again, most media sectors have an oligopolistic ownership structure. Media in the U.S. are largely commercial enterprises. As businesses, media companies seek to make a profit, and the way that they make a profit is by selling their media products to generate revenue. Media businesses collect revenue, generate money in two main ways. The most straightforward is through direct payment. That is when the consumer pays a certain amount of money for a media product, for access to watch or view or read a particular media product, right? So for instance, when we download a piece of music from iTunes, we pay a certain amount of money for that download to listen to that music. So that's a direct payment by the consumer to the media business. Another example of direct payment is when we go to see a film in a theater, all right? We pay a certain amount of money for a ticket to watch that movie in the theater, right? So it's a direct payment by the consumer to the media business. Another way in which media businesses generate revenue is through indirect payment, when the media businesses receive their revenue indirectly, not directly from consumers. The main way that companies receive indirect payments is through advertising and sponsorship. This is when an advertiser will pay money to a business to have their product or service featured on that show. So, for instance, let's take the example of NBC. You know, when NBC airs a particular show, The Biggest Loser, right? NBC makes money on that show, not directly from consumers or the people that are watching that show on TV or online. Instead, NBC makes money from airing that show, The Biggest Loser, indirectly from advertisers, where advertisers will pay NBC a certain amount of money to have their ads featured during the airing of The Biggest Loser. Right? So again, advertising is a form of indirect payment to the media business. Now, in this chapter on the economics of media, what we're going to be doing is seeing what kind of relationship there is between the economics of media businesses and how those media businesses perform and whether or not they are doing a good job. When we consider media, our society has certain expectations of media, what we think media should be doing for us, all right? So, for instance, in terms of retail prices, we expect that media businesses are going to be really competitive and offer people reasonable, fair, affordable prices for media products. We assume that media should be diverse, that they should provide us with a broad, diverse range of media products that express many different points of view. We expect our media to be creative, to provide us creative, interesting, artistic forms of media. And we expect media to play an essential, vital role in a democratic society, to inform us, to keep us apprised of what's happening in business and government, so that we can be informed citizens of democracy. So in this chapter, what we'll be doing is examining how media economics and the economic structure of media industries affects these certain social expectations, right? And we'll be asking questions about whether or not a particular ownership structure makes it more or less likely for the media to satisfy our expectations of media. For instance, if there is a pretty tight oligopoly in a media sector, does that mean that that media is going to be more or less likely to present us with a broad diversity of media products, right? Or if there is a monopoly in a particular media sector, does that mean that that monopoly is going to provide us with higher or lower prices for media products, right? So, for instance, in cities and towns where there is only one cable company, like Comcast, and we say that Comcast has a monopoly status. Does that monopoly status that Comcast have, does that mean that Comcast is going to be able to be non-competitive and jack up consumer prices because it doesn't have any other competitor? All right, so these are the kinds of questions that we'll be asking in this chapter. How does the economic structure of media sectors affect their performance? And is that in either desirable or undesirable ways?